like to welcome everybody to the March 2nd Town Council meeting and ask everybody who's able to please stand and join Councilor Balboni leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Seneth, roll call, please.
Councillor Ouellette? Councillor Pendleton?
Present.
Councillor Cordero? Here. Deputy Mayor Paterna?
Here.
Mayor Zimmerman?
Here.
Councillor Delnicki? Here. Councillor Fitzgerald? Here. Councillor King? Here. And Councillor Balboni?
Thank you very much. I don't have anything today on number 4, mayor's remarks. Number 5 is the adoption of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Paterna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we adopt the agenda as presented with one correction, and that is under new business 13D. That date should read April 6th, 2026 at 8 p.m.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Passes unanimously. We're up to items 6, communication and reports from the town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From my written report, the Capital Projects Committee met on February 18th, 2026. At their meeting, they approved a list of projects that gives almost all the departments their first and second priority requests. The total budget for the capital request is $3,614,400, which is the required amount per the town ordinance. In terms of budget meetings over the last 2 weeks, I've met with every department and reviewed their budget requests. I'm in the process of finalizing cuts and communicating those to the department heads. The Finance Department is giving the budget their final review to ensure all the numbers are correct, and they're working on putting the budget books together. February 22nd, 2026 storm update. The state of Connecticut experienced a significant blizzard last week. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all the staff. First, Public Works and Parks did an amazing job keeping our roads passable for emergency services throughout the storm, working well over 24 hours. Office staff were on site and prepared to open charging and warming locations in the event we actually saw the predicted power outages. Building staff have been measuring snow weights on the facility roofs and clearing doorways and sidewalks. Overall, I'm incredibly proud and appreciative of all the staff the town has and their willingness to show up when the times are challenging. Fiscal year 25-26 budget management. With the active winter season, both overtime and material budgets are overexpended. As a result, I've started taking measures to reduce spending for the remainder of the fiscal year. As the council remembers, the town, by statute, cannot deficit spend, meaning we must keep to our budgeted expenditures. Last week, I instituted a 1-month hiring freeze with the intention of reviewing the town's financial situation at the end of that month. Additionally, I've asked each department to draft a targeted spending freeze plan to reduce projects and purchases that would result in a 10% overall spending reduction. It's important to note that as of this report, I have not implemented any of the spending freezes yet. In terms of our town attorney RFP, due to the challenges caused by the recent winter storms, we've pushed the town attorney interviews back by 2 weeks to allow staff time to consolidate the responses and set up some interviews. 2 items that I don't have on my written report for all of you. At your last meeting, I was asked what the difference is between having a AAA and a AA credit rating associated with our bonding. And as all of you remember, we bonded $14.6 million a couple weeks ago. That actually is a savings. We have a savings because of our AAA credit rating of $140,000 because of that. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention to the council, I emailed you your collector's update overall for the 2023 grand list versus the 2024 grand list. In 2023, at this time during the year, they were 98.08% collected. This time, right now, we're at 97.49% collected. That's all I have to report. If the council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, Mr. Town Manager, I have two, and then I'll see who's next. I have others, but I just wanted to follow up to what you just said. The $140,000 savings, is that one time or is that yearly?
That's for the entire term of the issued debt,
Okay,
so for the 20-year term.
thank you. All right, one question I did have, just to kind of lead off, since I was asked a question by a member of the public. Under the police department, and I think we talked about this the last meeting, I'm going to call it the flock system, but it's the special things that are registering people's information. I do have a couple questions. Can you tell us where they're located and who controls the access before I have a couple others?
So, in terms of sharing information of locations, I would refer that to the PD because that is a security issue. And we would have to talk to the chief about whether they're okay sharing that publicly. That being said, I would tell you they're on major roadways in and out of town. The information is accessible to the town's police department. I know there have been some public issues in Connecticut in particular associated with federal agencies accessing that information and that data. At my direction, the police department did go back and look through the settings on our flock system to make sure that that information is not being shared. And I can tell you, sitting here today, it is not being shared with federal agencies.
Okay, and just again to have the people have a little bit of comfort, if the access was changed, would that be something you'd be notified, or is this something that periodically we have to check just to make sure that?
I would have to get back to you on how that would work. I think it requires an action on the part of the police department to actually make those modifications, and I'm gonna guess, given the political significance of how that is right now, nobody's gonna go make those changes without notifying people.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for the town manager? Councilor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Stephen King Jr. speaking. Thank you for your report, Mr. Maniscalco. So in regards to the storm update, in every town across New England, at least, even in Philly, Jersey, everybody's trying to come up with new ideas in terms of how to save money. What ideas have you come up with? Because unfortunately, I was informed that we can't use resident labor. Because I know I snow blow, and I was just like, I did my neighbors, and I said, oh, you know what? I'm in the zone. Let me go do somebody else's. And I know, matter of fact, the mayor of New York instituted that, where you pay people on the street, said, go ahead, and next thing you know, everything was pretty much clear. Is there something that we can do outside of, while I love our town and all the hard work, but paying somebody time and a half, if we have other people that we can just pay time, might save us a little bit of money?
so the work of plowing streets is a union job, specifically. And we would be running a pretty significant grievance if we were to outsource that work. We do, in certain instances, when the amount of work is overwhelming for the current staff, which is rare, we will bring in a contractor to help with some of that work, but that's not typically a cost savings comparative to the work that our internal staff and our captive labor does. We could certainly, and I've seen this in other communities in the past, stop plowing at certain points in the middle of the night. But I would suggest, from what I've seen, that does not result in a very good outcome. That typically results in a lot more work for staff to get roads open. It also results in a situation that streets are not open for first responders to get down. And as a result, it puts the community at risk, as well as reduces the ability of residents to get to work in the morning. I think when you talk to outside contractors, just to pay straight time, let's just go with that one idea. Typically, outside contractors will work while the sun is up, but they won't work during midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And with the level of importance that we have to ensure that we have the ability to put police, fire, and ambulances down roads, we can't take that risk of a contractor saying, I'm getting tired, I'm gonna go home. So our staff, when they get tired, we rotate them in and out, and we make sure that all the roads are open, because everybody's safety is so important to us.
So
It's
you
a
said-
challenging scenario. It's not an easy scenario to be fixed any other way at this point that I could think of.
Okay.
I mean, maybe sidewalks, if people wanted to shovel sidewalks. I mean, at this point, we do have a requirement for people to, you know, if you have a sidewalk going by your own home, there's an ordinance that requires people to clear those sidewalks off. There are some instances where there are sidewalks where there's no home by them, directly by them.
Yep.
And if you were in that area and you cleaned off that sidewalk as well, that certainly would reduce the costs the town would have to take in terms of clearing those sidewalks later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Delnicki.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate your statement and your report regarding the town staff taking care of all the roads. I was out there doing my driveway as well and saw the hard work that they did, so I appreciate that, especially 24-hour shifts. Seen that before. Other question is regarding the budget books. Do you plan on having them to us by the next meeting?
I would have to go back and look at your budget calendar. Our plan is to get them to you at or just before when I do my budget presentation. So, but we'll try to get them to you as soon as we can. I haven't heard from the finance department where they stand with their process either yet, so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no other councilor, I have a few other questions. So page 1, capital projects. Mr. Town Manager, can you, I know the answer, but just for the public, could you let the council know what the process would be if we wanted to cut the capital budget request?
Sure, so the capital budget has its own ordinance that dictates its growth. You can certainly grow beyond what that number is, but to grow below it, you would actually need a supermajority vote to cut that lower. So I believe the ordinance is 1% of new growth. 1% of new growth on the grand list needs to be added to the capital budget. So that $3,614,000 number is that 1% growth of the grand list. So if you want to go below that number, you would need a supermajority.
Okay. And I know we talked about this, but am I correct that approximately $1.3 million equals a 1% change in taxes, kind of up and down?
Approximately, I would say so.
All right, just for people's information, when we start talking about the budget. Like Councilor Delnicki, I was going to, comment quickly on all the work that was done plowing. Would it be possible, would it make sense, our next meeting to kind of get an update? We could talk about, just the hours, how hard people worked, what the challenges were, given that we probably had more snow in the last couple weeks than we've had in the last couple years. I'm betting that it's 95% success, and 5%. We certainly probably dinged some mailboxes and plowed some people in an attempt to get rid of the snow. You did talk about like getting fire and police to work. I also see the superintendent sitting here. Hopefully the public understands that if the schools aren't plowed and if the roads aren't plowed at 4:30 or whatever, the bus drivers have to get to the buses to get everything going, then we don't have school. So that's also a consideration. You talked about the spending freeze. Could you give us, I know you said we haven't done anything yet, but is there any ideas, maybe like in past years when you've had to do this, just to give the public, and it could be next meeting, it could give the public just an idea of what this really means?
Sure, so right now we have a hiring freeze in place. That means that there's a number of positions throughout the town that are vacant that we were currently hiring for. Those will remain vacant. I am reviewing them on a case-by-case basis when certain positions have impacts on either public safety and/or overtime costs. So, for example, in our police department, we are running pretty well to spend, well, we're overspent at this point in overtime costs at the police department. They just proposed hiring a new officer who actually is certified, ready to go, get back on the street. It would be a two-week turnaround until we could actually get them in a car and operating on their own. And essentially I authorized that one because that individual will help us reduce overtime due to getting their boots on the ground. In terms of other spending freeze items, we have, continual costs associated with just operating the place in terms of buying paper, buying pens, doing day-to-day business, all of those in the past. I have had instances where I've had to put a freeze on that for a month or two to kind of land the airplane, for lack of a better term. Right now, looking at our overall budget, I think we should be okay. The finance department's saying we should be okay, but I think as I mentioned to you earlier, or later last week, due to the winter weather alone, we're looking at trying to come up with about $255,000 in overages. So, it's like trying to land a 747 with an engine on fire right now. So we're trying to see what we could do to come up with that money in any way we possibly can. We're probably going to end up taking our contingencies, 100% of them. We'll probably be taking any savings we could come up with out of other departments to make that actually work.
Okay. Thank you. Now my last one, for the police department, just for the public, it looks like shortly we will be at authorized strength.
Correct.
Which, when I was appointed mayor and you took me around and I visited the police department, one of the things I heard was that's very unusual. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that of the 47 people, they'll all be working because people are out for various reasons. But we're a lot closer to full strength than probably have been in a while, which means some of the things that might not have been taken care of in the past, at least they're options now.
Correct. I think it's important to note, at the time that you did your tour of the police department, we had a number of officers who were going through the academy at the time. So they finish their academy, then they have to do FTO and actually be on the street working with somebody else. So they're not really an extra set of hands yet. And those individuals that are going through the FTO process, I believe there's maybe 2-3 more weeks, and we'll have, I think, an extra 2 or 3 officers actually on the street on their own, which is a huge step forward. So, we are adding a lot of people to kind of get us back up to where we needed to be. That being said, like you mentioned, we still do have officers that are injured, out for various medical reasons or personal reasons, and we try to fill them as much as we can to hopefully reduce overtime, but that does happen. It's a part of the job,
Okay.
unfortunately.
All right. Seeing no one else, we're up to.
Councilor Pendleton has.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Pendleton.
That's all right, thank you. Mr. Maniscalco, you said 255,000 to look at other departments to find monies for that. How did we get in that deficit? What's causing that 255,000?
It's
Money's
an
needed.
overage and overtime costs associated with winter storms and salt costs for purchasing salt.
Okay, so that's a little thorn in my side, you know that, because I've always like, where's our salt? I'm the salt girl. So we need to buy it in the summertime, get it stocked up, do what we got to do to be prepared for every storm that comes down in the future. That's usually the game plan of what we did in the past, was purchased it in the summer. when
Right.
It's on sale.
So we started the winter with a full salt shed, like we do every winter. Just due to the number of call outs that we've had, we've gone through that salt shed and had to purchase extra salt to keep it filled. So that's where the additional cost comes in for the salt.
Well, that's pretty amazing. I've heard other towns are now going to start mixing with sand because of their shortness also, and they're waiting for it to come off the ship somewhere from New Haven or something, whatever it is. The other thing that I'd like to say is I'm listening. Capital, I really hope that the council can hear the plight and the blight of the town, and to get the projects done that was approved by Capital without doing reductions with Capital. And the other thing is that I'm sitting here very pleased to hear that we will be at full capacity, full strength with our police department. That's taken us many years to do, and I will continue to fight to get us a new officer every single year till we're up to speed to where we need to be. Thank you.
All right, item 7 is public input. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to the public? All right, just give me 30 seconds. Public input shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speaker may address the council on any matter within our jurisdiction. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. The town council does not respond at the same meeting you speak to us. Mrs. Seneth will keep track, and we'll try to let you know when it's time to finish up, and if you'd like to come up. Thank you.
Hit the microphone, please, and you have to turn the microphone on.
There we go. All right. Hello, my name is Tom Dooley. I live at 949 Pleasant Valley Drive, Road. I always get that mixed up. But I'm a resident of South Windsor. I have been pretty much my entire life. I have a son that goes to school here. I'm also one of the coaches for the youth program for the wrestling. You know, obviously we've had a pretty harsh winter, and because of that, we ended up having about 5 cancellations with our practices. We do rely on using the high school and the wrestling room there, and it is difficult to reschedule some of these practices, and we haven't been able to just because of some of the restrictions that kind of are in place. Even though there are other open days in which we could use it, but it just seems like there's not really a good process as to you know, streamline us using these facilities and being able to use kind of what we have available. And I just wanted to bring that up to the council and hope that you guys and the schools can work together to finding some way to allow us to fully use these facilities so that we can, you know, get all of our practice time in, and so that these kids can also do the sport that they're trying to do. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. I know we don't normally respond, but your timing is pretty good with who we have in the audience right now. All right, is there anybody else who'd like to speak to the public or speak to the council? Come on up.
Got it. Linda Jeske, 70 Mohegan Trail. So I'll probably be one of the few people who will say, I am not happy with snow removal in this town. The big storm that we had, I'm a widow, I don't have a snow blower, I rely on somebody else to come and do my snow plowing for me. So the last big storm we had, I waited until 7:30 at night to have somebody come and plow my driveway and plow my sidewalks. Not 10 minutes after they left, snowplow comes tearing up the road and covers my driveway and my sidewalk. So all of that deep snow that somebody else took care of. So I called the next day to the Public Works Department. Somebody came out, said, oh, they looked at it, we'll get back with you. Very disappointed in the answer I got back. We don't have the resources, we don't have the money. I don't have the money to plow my driveway, plow my sidewalk several times after a snowstorm. I don't know if I'm the only one. The answer I got from the gentleman was like, this has happened to multiple people, there's nothing that we can do. I'm not really happy with that answer. I don't think that's the correct answer. What do people like me do? I mean, you know, it's expensive to have that done, and then a day later to have that expense again. I just think that there's something better that we can do in this town. So, thank you. Do I need to sign in on this too?
Is there anybody else that'd like to speak to the council at this time? All right. Seeing none, we're up to item 8, which is adoption of minutes of the previous meeting. Counselor Delnicki.
Okay, adoption of minutes of previous meeting, approval of the February 17th, 2026 Town Council regular meeting minutes. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the minutes of the regular Town Council meeting of February 17th, 2026.
Are there any, okay, thank you. Are there any questions or concerns? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Roulette? Counselor Pendleton? Okay, we'll go back to her. Counselor Cordero?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paterna?
Yes.
Mayor Zimmerman?
Yes.
Counselor Delnicki?
Yes.
Counselor Fitzgerald? Yes. Counselor King? Yes. Counselor Balboni? Counselor Pendleton?
Yes.
All right. We have 7 and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. We're up to item 9, communication from liaisons, officers, and boards directly responsible to the council. Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Board of Education met last week. Obviously, the big item on the agenda was the adoption of the budget, and since the superintendent is here to discuss that, I'll let her do the talking on that one. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, seeing none. Item 10, reports from committees. Seeing none. Consent agenda, first reading, Councilor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Stephen King Jr. speaking. Motion to approve 11A1 through 11A4 as a first reading on the consent agenda. That's right, we're reading everything. Resolution reappointing James Hennessy as a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Resolution appointing James Murray as a member of the Water Pollution Control Authority to fill the expired term of Joseph Body. Resolution appointing Bridget Butler as a member of the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission. Resolution appointing Diana McNeil as a member of the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission.
Second.
All right. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, any abstentions? Passes unanimously. We are up to new business, 13A. I'm going to turn it over to the town manager to make an introduction, but just since, you know, I just want to make my own comments that, you know, welcome Dr. Carter and members of the Board of Ed today. You know, this is an opportunity for the council to kind of make a pledge that we're going to work together with the board through the budget process with respect. Just a reminder that normally there's no questions today. And a heads up that we have a joint meeting with the Board of Ed on March 18th at the high school annex. And I guess I'll turn it over to the Vice Chair of the Board of Education.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor Paterna, and members of the Town Council. My name is Paul Mackey, Vice Chairman of the South Windsor Board of Education, and I am speaking tonight on behalf of the board as Chairwoman Corsi is unable to be here this evening. Dr. Carter has consistently presented budgets that she has presented believe that we could responsibly defend, not only to the council but to our residents. And this year was no different. She brought forward a proposal driven largely by contractual obligations, special education needs, and rising insurance costs, leaving very little for discretionary spending. As a board, we asked ourselves, at what point would it become harder to defend not doing more for our schools? After careful discussion, we unanimously voted to increase her proposal because it is our responsibility not only to maintain the progress of our district, but to ensure we are not creating a larger challenge down the road by underinvesting in our schools. We understand this is a significant request and that the percentage alone may be difficult to absorb at first glance. However, as Dr. Carter walks you through the details, I believe you will see the proposal is grounded in real needs, careful planning, and a commitment to sustaining the quality of education our community expects. It is also worth noting that despite significant enrollment growth and increasing demands on our students and our staff, South Windsor continues to spend less per pupil than other districts in our DIRG. Families continue to choose this town because of the strength of our schools, and that growth requires thoughtful planning and investment. I want to emphasize that this budget was supported unanimously by the entire Board of Education. All 9 members, Republicans and Democrats alike, agreed that this was the right step for our district and our community. Before I turn things over, I would just like to thank the council for all the work that they do on behalf of our community, along with the Board of Education Central Office Administration team who is here tonight, and nearly the 1,000 employees across our district. This budget reflects months of careful analysis, planning, and dedication from individuals who often work behind the scenes without recognition. Their commitment to students and their tireless work ethic strengthen our schools and ultimately save our district money. While their impact may not be obvious line by line in the budget document, it is felt in every building across our district. I thank you for your time, your partnership, and the work we will continue to do together in the weeks ahead. I now pass it off to our superintendent, Dr. Kate Carter, who I would like to mention has started her 16th, I shouldn't say started, we're halfway through, her 16th year here in South Windsor, which is a pretty remarkable tenure in this profession, to present our proposed budget. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am pleased to present to you the Board of Education's proposed budget for fiscal year 2027. The upcoming discussions regarding the funding for South Windsor Public Schools will require a conversation that goes beyond just the annual spending plan. Our community has reached a critical juncture. Both the Board of Education and the Town Council must engage in a broader, more philosophical dialogue about whether we are going to adopt budgets that improve the quality of our schools, or just maintain the quality of our schools, or erode the quality of our schools. The budget I am presenting tonight reflects only the cost of maintaining our schools. However, after 10 consecutive years of enrollment growth, coupled with recent budgets that have not kept pace with that growth, even just a status quo budget requires a higher percentage increase. Decision makers must therefore choose between cutting programs and laying off teachers, or authorize the funds required to save these programs and to keep our teachers, something increasingly important in the midst of a teacher shortage. These are difficult decisions, but they are the choices before us. What is no longer possible is significantly reducing the board's budget without eliminating programs or laying off staff. We simply can no longer kick the can down the road. I know people appreciate it when I get straight to the point, so I'll begin with the proposed increase. The Board of Education's proposed budget for FY27 is $106,949,445, representing an 8.16% increase over last year's appropriation. For clarity, the superintendent's proposed budget increase was 7.91%. The Board of Education voted unanimously to increase the budget by $250,000, resulting in an 8.16% increase. If we were experiencing declining enrollment, or if prior budgets had been more robust, or if we had not relied on reserves last year to artificially suppress the true cost of running our schools, we would have been able to come in lower this year. With that in mind, let's review the drivers of the budget increase. This chart breaks down the major drivers by category. As you can see, right out of the gate, we are already at a 5.64% increase to last year's appropriation just to meet our contractual salary and healthcare expenses. So out of the 8.16% increase, 5.64% is our contractual obligations to current staff. The next largest category is the increase in special education. With the increase of mandated special education costs, combined with the aforementioned fixed costs of contractual obligations, we are already at a 7.11% increase. Increases in electricity, school safety, and instructional resources combined bring us to a 7.9% increase over last year's appropriation. Finally, I'd like to draw your attention to the increase associated with new staffing in response to increasing enrollment. It brings us from a 7.90% to the total proposed increase of 8.16%. In other words, new staffing related to enrollment only increases the overall budget by 0.26%. It is woefully inadequate and does not keep pace with enrollment. But in order to keep expenses down, the budget already reflects a cut of $2.3 million in new staffing requests. It is important to note that $500,000 of the special education increase and $470,000 of the healthcare increase is due to relying on reserve funds in FY26 in response to the Town Council's $1.3 million cut to the proposed budget. That is the consequence of artificially suppressing a budget in one year only to create a fiscal cliff and feel the effects more acutely the next. As previously discussed, healthcare costs represent a significant driver of the increase. Healthcare is up over 20% in this proposed budget, and overall, healthcare represents approximately 13% of the total budget. To put the scope of healthcare into perspective, the projected cost of healthcare claims alone will be on average $1.3 million a month. Of course, there is always some uncertainty, and this number can swing in either direction depending on employee usage. And that is why the board has always been committed to being an excellent steward of its healthcare reserve. It's a responsibility we take very seriously. Please note that industry standard for a healthcare reserve is to maintain the fund at approximately 25% of expected claims, or said another way, the equivalent of 3 months of claims. Throughout my tenure, we have maintained the reserve at the appropriate level until now. Our current budget, FY26, relies on $470,000 of reserve funds in response to the $1.3 million cut to last year's proposed budget. As a result, the reserve is only at 20.68% of expected claims as reported at the last budget status. I am hopeful that if we are fortunate enough to have unexpended funds at the end of this year, we can remedy the situation by depositing those funds into the healthcare reserve account. And while we are on the subject of surpluses, I would like to share some thoughts. Last year, I heard individuals use the presence of a surplus as the rationale for cutting the proposed budget. Pointing to year-end unexpended funds as the justification for budget cuts is fiscally misguided. Let us be clear. If the district is going to be penalized for showing a surplus, there is an easy solution. We could simply spend every last dollar. And that is exactly what happens in many districts and municipalities. But I am proud to say that is not how our district operates. We have intentionally built a culture of fiscal responsibility. Our administrators know that if they return funds at the end of the year, they will not be punished with automatic or ill-advised reductions the following year. And that matters because before anyone criticizes a surplus or uses it as a rationale to cut a budget, we must first ask one critical question: why does the surplus exist? A year-end surplus is evidence of fiscal restraint. Let me say that again. A surplus is evidence of fiscal restraint. The less transparent and fiscally irresponsible path is to spend the money simply because it is available, often called the use it or lose it mentality. Our school leaders are thoughtful stewards of public funds. They look for ways to stretch every dollar while still meeting student needs. And when they succeed, those savings are redirected to the broader needs of the district. So let me pose the question plainly. Which approach truly serves the taxpayer? Having school secretaries purchase supplies that no one currently needs just to zero out an account out of fear if they don't spend it all in one year, they won't have the funds they need the next? Or creating conditions for responsible spending so those unexpended funds can be used to mitigate future costs. If we are fortunate enough to end a fiscal year with unexpended funds, the board does not keep the money as it has sometimes been characterized. Instead, we use the funds strategically to offset future taxpayer costs. We do this by directing those funds to our healthcare reserve or reducing pension liabilities. In short, a culture of fiscal restraint that produces surpluses is far superior to the commonplace but ill-advised use it or lose it spending mentality. In that alternative model, it is the South Windsor taxpayer who loses. Okay, let's shift back to another significant driver of the increased special education. Special education is 19.85% of our operating budget. It is a significant driver of our costs, and these services are mandated by the state and federal government. Not only is special education a significant portion of our budget, it is also the most volatile. As students move in and out of district, there can be huge shifts in costs in both directions. In order to showcase this kind of volatility, let's take a look at the changes that have occurred since I presented the FY26 budget last January. These are changes related to in-district high-cost programming that occurred after we developed the FY26 budget. As you can see on the slide, 6 students associated with high-cost in-district programming moved out of South Windsor since January. And during this same time period, 24 students associated with high-cost in-district programming moved in. This is why a public education budget must be nimble. We are mandated to provide these services for any child that moves into town, whether we had budgeted for those expenses or not. Let's shift to out-of-district high-cost programming, generally referred to as outplacements. While we have had great success with in-district programs, there are still times when a child's needs are so significant they cannot be met in traditional classroom settings. Within this proposed budget, there is just over $4 million for special education outplacements alone. This number already factors in the expected state contribution through the excess cost formula. And the vast range of annual outplacement costs for just one individual student may surprise you. Currently, our lowest outplacement is $55,000, and the most expensive individual outplacement is $425,000. Now that you know what is driving our budget locally in South Windsor, I wanted to address the pitfalls of comparing our percentage increase to other towns. It was suggested at the joint budget meeting last year that South Windsor's percentage increase should align with Simsbury's, Avon's, and Glastonbury's. This is a fundamentally flawed comparison because it ignores enrollment realities. Between 2015 and 2024, Simsbury decreased by 63 students, Avon decreased by 193, and Glastonbury decreased by 373 students, while South Windsor increased by 969 students. By any reasonable standard, our percentage increase should exceed theirs simply to keep pace with enrollment. And we must also consider the base upon which these increases are calculated. Let's take a look at the additional funding that would be needed to match the same per pupil spending for each of these towns. To match Simsbury, we would need to add $12.8 million. And to match Avon, we would need to add $12.6 million. And to match Glastonbury, $14.8 million. Without acknowledging this funding gap, these comparisons to other towns are invalid. And while we are on the subject of per pupil spending, let's take a look at how South Windsor compares when analyzing per pupil spending statewide. The recently published comparisons of education spending by town is an important factor for leaders to consider. As you can see, for the past 6 years, every district in our DIRG spent more per pupil than South Windsor. We have been dead last in our DIRG for 6 consecutive budget cycles. The 5-year look back of a statewide analysis is even more compelling. In 2025, only 10 districts out of 165 spent less per pupil than South Windsor, with 154 districts spending more per pupil than South Windsor. Said another way, 93% of school districts spent more per pupil than South Windsor. Clearly, the Board of Education has been an excellent financial steward, And this data demonstrates why seeking efficiencies is not a realistic solution to mitigate the necessary increase to the board's operating budget. With 93% of the state investing more per student than South Windsor, we do not have a spending problem, we have an enrollment problem. The 154 districts that spent more per pupil than South Windsor are just too many to list on this slide, but I have listed the 10 districts that spent less per pupil. As previously stated, the data confirms that we do not have a spending problem, we have an enrollment problem. And just to be clear, the enrollment problem is not felt in just one year to the next. It's the cumulative impact of 10 consecutive years of enrollment growth that is driving this budget, which is a perfect segue to look at some long-term enrollment data. I think everyone is very familiar with the Connecticut map I have shared in previous meetings. This map of Connecticut is color-coded to reflect statewide school enrollment trends between 2015 and 2024. Let's break down this map into actual student counts. As you can see, 142 towns experienced declining enrollment, and only 27 towns experienced increasing enrollment. The only district to exceed our percentage increase is Eastford, whose percentage growth was 29.1%. But to put that into context, they are a tiny town that only increased by 39 students in comparison to our increase of 969 students during that same time period. Let's see how we compare within the same time period through a DIRG-B lens. As you can see, we are an extreme outlier. Only 5 other towns saw increasing enrollment, while 15 towns saw decreasing enrollment, with an average decline of 372 students. Among those that increased, the average was a gain of 159 students in comparison to South Windsor, which grew by 969 students during that same time period. Between our most recent lowest enrollment in 2015 and through our projected peak in 2029, our district will grow by 1,292 students. To put that number into context, there are 65 school districts in Connecticut whose total district population is smaller than just our growth since 2015. As you can see, our elementary school enrollment has hit a plateau and remains stable through 2035. The middle school has already increased by 337 students since 2017 and is expected to increase by an additional 142 students at its peak in year 2029. The high school has already increased by 233 students since 2018 and is projected to increase by an additional 351 students at its peak in year 2033. You'll note that the high school doesn't peak until 4 years after the district-wide peak. That is because the large cohorts of students are still making their way to the high school. It's logical to think that if a community had the fastest growing school district, it might also be the fastest growing town. However, the Department of Public Health estimates that since 2015, there are 25 other Connecticut towns that grew faster than the town of South Windsor. Our school district's disproportionate growth in comparison to the town's growth is also important to consider when analyzing resource allocation. Between 2015 and 2024, South Windsor schools increased by 23.32%. The Department of Public Health estimates that the town of South Windsor only grew by 4.94% during that same time period. When our demographers drilled down further into the 4.94%, they estimate that over 3/4 of the town's growth is driven by students. This has important economic implications for our community. And while it should be noted that the Department of Public Health's population data points are very rough estimates, the overall premise that the town's growth is driven predominantly by students is grounded in data. And it makes sense when you think about real estate sales and why people are moving to our community. In fact, Realtor.com released this information last summer. To be clear, I am not identifying Realtor.com as a vetted nor a reliable source. I am sharing information they published that caught the attention of many South Windsor residents. As you can see, they have named South Windsor as one of the top 10 communities nationwide where Americans want to buy homes. While some may call this a good problem to have, I would also submit it is an expensive problem to have. Let's take a look at the real impact real estate sales has on district operating budget. Young families are moving here for the schools. So in a scenario where two older adults, often called empty nesters, sell their home to two younger adults with 3 school-aged children, the town now has a legal obligation to educate those 3 children, despite the property taxes generated by that house remaining the same. Thus, a household that was generating no public school expenses is now generating the cost of educating 3 students. Despite the district's growth far outpacing the town's growth, the school's slice of the pie has not changed. When asking whether the South Windsor Board of Education's percentage of the town's overall budget is larger in comparison to other communities, the answer is no. Comparative FY25 data confirms that South Windsor's allocation of resources between the board and the town is quite typical. Among Derby towns, the average board portion of the town's overall budget is 63.44%. In South Windsor, the board's portion is actually slightly smaller at 62.28%. Clearly, our allocation of resources between the board and the town is aligned with other communities. I have already reviewed the drivers that drove the percentage increase up, but it is equally important to understand what brought the budget down. It is essential that our town leaders understand the drastic cuts that were already made proactively at the superintendent level. The starting point for our budget began at $111,374,461, representing a 12.64% increase over last year's appropriation. The starting point represents a budget in which all requests from schools and departments are funded. I have outlined the process we used to make $4.7 million in reductions. In the first round of reductions, we reduced staff services, such as forgoing the annual pension payment. We also moved some requests to other funding sources, such as the Special Education Reserve and Medicaid. We cut the middle school's requests for mental health supports through ESS. We also moved some items to capital projects. In addition, there were many cuts across various accounts. Those actions allowed us to reduce the budget by $1.88 million, bringing the percentage increase down to 10.73%. In the second round of reductions, we cut 18.3 FTEs of new staffing that had been requested. That translated to an additional reduction of approximately $1.4 million, bringing the percentage increase down to 9.3%. In our third and final round of reducing the budget, we cut another 15 FTEs that were requested by our principals and curriculum leaders. In total, 33.3 FTEs were cut at the superintendent level. This next slide captures the Board of Education's increase to the superintendent's proposed budget. At its February 25th meeting, the board voted unanimously to increase the proposed budget by $250,000. This funded a high school social studies teacher, a behavior specialist at Eli Terry, and a behavior specialist at Timothy Edwards. It also allowed us to further reduce our reliance on reserves. The next slide will showcase all of the requested staff positions that are not included in the budget even after the board's increase. As you can see, these are not frivolous asks. All of these were defensible staffing requests from our principals and curriculum leaders. It was also a very difficult decision to make so many cuts proactively. And these hard choices should demonstrate we undergo a deliberative process, and the approach is more thoughtful than just simply proposing all requests. In other words, the administration makes the hard choices before it even gets to the board, as I would only propose a budget increase that both the board and the council could defend. I made as many reductions as I could responsibly achieve without crossing over to an irresponsible budget. I use the word irresponsible because artificially suppressing the cost of running the district only masks the problem and sets up the taxpayer for an even bigger spike in the next budget cycle. The taxpayer relies on us to be forward-thinking and consider the financial impact over many years, not just one budget cycle in isolation. We cannot claim to be good financial stewards if we fail to adopt budgets that keep pace with enrollment. And we are seeing the consequences of last year's cut. If the 5.97% increase we proposed last year had been fully funded, then the board's current proposed increase would only be 6.7%, opposed to 8.16%. I close tonight by returning to the opening statement I made at the start of this presentation. Our town leaders must engage in a more philosophical discussion about whether we are going to adopt budgets that improve our schools, or just maintain the quality of our schools, or erode the quality of our schools. And because this presentation is already so dense with numbers and percentages, I thought ending with a simple graphic might bring clarity. The graphic on the left is a depiction of what we have been doing, kicking the can down the road. We continue to defer costs. We have not moved the district forward, nor have we made any significant improvements. It is not in the best interest of our students, nor it is in the best interest of the taxpayer, as kicking the can down the road just stacks up the costs and creates future spikes in tax increases. On the right-hand side is a depiction of where we are today. We have been kicking the can down a single road, but now we must face a three-pronged fork in the road. Improvement lane represents improving the quality of our education system. Maintenance drive represents accepting the true cost of running our schools and maintaining the status quo, but with no improvements. And erosion alley represents cutting programs, laying off teachers, and lowering the quality of our schools. All of these scenarios have implications for our students, families, staff, and taxpayers. It also has implications for our residential property values. I'm sure we all received the same flyers in the mail from local real estate companies showcasing the number of homes that sold well over asking price in South Windsor. And the real estate agents will tell you, it's the demand for our schools that is driving property values up. While it is true that more students require more funding, it is also true that a resident's most significant asset has more value, which in turn raises taxes. It's a lot to consider. And now is the time our town leaders need to decide which road to take. And unless there is a dramatic shift to a more robust economic development plan or some other strategy that leads to increased revenue for the town, these are the three roads our town leaders must consider. This concludes my presentation, and I look forward to working with the Board of Education and the Town Council as we navigate these roads together.
Thank you, Dr. Carter, and just a reminder to the council that we have the joint meeting on March 18th at the high school annex with the Board of Ed, and I would just ask everybody to make sure they, do their review and have their homework ready for that day. And hopefully we can have a bigger picture discussion also. All right. All right, we're going to move on. And again, thank you to the Board of Ed members who were here today.
All right, we're moving on to discussion item B, establishing administrative fees for DMV put-on and take-off services. Mr. Maniscalco?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Paterna. I believe our tax collector is in the back there. Or do we have your public hearing? Oh, all right. We could wait the minute. Let's do the public hearing.
Sorry,
Come back to it.
We'll withdraw that and wait.
There you go.
Take a 30-second break and then start the public hearing at 8 o'clock. Thank you. All right, it is 8 o'clock, and I think we can begin the public hearing. If you would read the public announcement.
All right. To be published in the Journal Enquirer, February 20th, legal ad, Town of South Windsor. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, March 2nd, 2026 at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Ave, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on an amendment to ordinance number 96 to dissolve the Mass Transit and Highway Advisory Committee, and an amendment to ordinance number 235 to change the meeting schedule of the South Windsor Arts Commission, dated at South Windsor, Connecticut, this 18th day of February 2026, attested to by Catherine Seneth, Executive Assistant Clerk of the Council.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak regarding these proposed changes in ordinances for both those commissions? Going once? Going twice? Okay. As unscientific as it is, we usually take a straw poll after a public hearing. All those in favor of... Mrs. Jeske, yes? You're the straw poll. Would you agree, yes, that we should be changing these ordinances to reflect new recommendations for those commissions? All those in favor, aye. Any opposed? Let the record show it's an overwhelming 1-0 vote. Thank you. Item B, Mr. Maniscalco.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we wanted to have a discussion item about administrative fees for DMV put on and take off services. I believe I reported to all of you about this at my last manager's report at the last meeting. Our tax collector's here to kind of go over it with you a little bit more in depth and answer any questions you may have. If you want to take it away, Jennifer.
You should have been provided a copy of the proposed resolution as well as the policy and the internal use guidelines for staff. This is not going to be a huge moneymaker for you. It's not guaranteed revenue, but it will.
Can I just apologize? I left at the wrong time and didn't leave good instructions unless you've talked about it. Oh.
We've been there.
That's okay. Third time's a charm, right? Okay, so you guys should have in hand a copy of the proposed resolution, the policy, and the internal use procedure for the DMV put on and take off, and the second portion, which is for immediate clearance, a $20 fee for those that are delinquent and want to be cleared immediately. This is not going to be a huge moneymaker for you. It is not guaranteed revenue. It will be used to help offset the cost of the fee that we have to pay statutorily to DMV for using this service. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does anybody have any questions? Councilor Cordero.
No problem. Just for clarification, thanks for bringing this to our attention. So basically what happens if you want to rush the process in person, you pay the $20, correct?
You would only have to rush the process if you're a delinquent taxpayer.
Correct.
And you want DMV clearance. If you want immediate clearance while we process it in front of you, it would be $20 per name. If you paid during a delinquent bill and you paid with one of the mechanisms that would afford you clearance, you would be provided a report to DMV and it would take 24 hours, business hours, overnight for you to get clearance.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's only going to penalize those that are delinquent, just for clarification.
Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you have like a rough estimate of how many people are generally delinquent in a year?
Yeah, I've been tracking it the last few years. So typically each August we range anywhere from 3,300 to 4,200 put-ons. Whereas in February, after the supplemental billing, it's anywhere from $800 to $1,100 that we would be putting on.
And do we currently have, is there a current, like, fee for an
Currently, we do
expedited
not
service?
charge a fee, but it does take an exorbitant amount of time for staff to process this information. And realistically, like I said, you're only penalizing those that are delinquent. You can avoid it by paying on time.
And, sorry, is the $5 fee, is that new as well, or has that
They're
always been
both
there?
new items before you today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you just go over those numbers again and explain? I heard 3,300 to 4,000 or 4,200, and then I heard 800. What's the?
Well, in August, when we do the put-ons, those are your regular motor vehicle bills. When we do it in February, it's the delinquent supplemental motor vehicle bills.
Okay, and I think I read in here, but are other towns currently doing this? Is this something new in the area? Do we know?
There's other municipalities in the state of Connecticut that do it. I think you're going to see more and more towns using this as a source of revenue moving forward.
Okay. Well, we clearly need sources of revenue. I wasn't sure who's first. Councilor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that being said, I'm wondering, is it $5 is just a cutesy thing, or does that really help? The $5, the $5 and the $20, like you said, the amount of work that goes into it, is that?
It's $5 per vehicle.
Right.
So if you own 3 vehicles, you're going to get hit with a $15 fee.
Right.
We're not in it to make a lot of money. This is just to offset the costs that we're statutorily required. And we're hopeful that maybe if we charge these additional fees, it'll encourage others to pay on time to avoid these fees moving forward, which will also help reduce printing and postage costs as we don't have to send as many delinquent notices.
Oh, right. Just to be clear, I'm fine with the fee. Okay. I'm just asking just to make sure that we're not adding a fee that really doesn't cover your expenses. I'd rather see, if that's the case, I'd rather it be I can't think of the right word right now, prohibitive, where, say, for example, if all of a sudden I saw on my bill, if you don't pay this, it's $500. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying, because the shock of that would say, okay, babe, we got to pay this bill, as opposed to $20, which does that cover anything?
Yes, it
really?
does.
It does.
It's gonna,
okay, so
it's going to help offset the costs of a staff member and offset the cost of reporting to DMV.
Mr. Maniscalco.
I think it's important to remember as well, if you don't pay your taxes on your car, you're also accruing interest on that,
yes,
that bill.
Yes, at 18% a year.
So there's your sticker shock, right?
And if you don't comply with a demand notice, you could be sent an alias tax warrant, and that's another 15% on top. So, I mean, we use all the tools we have, but we don't want to overly burden the residents as well.
Councilor Delnicki.
Yes, sorry, last minute. But then also, they can't register their car.
Correct. That's what a put-on is.
Right. So,
and we typically do that within 5 days of the last day to pay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, just kind of I'm from the questions, I'm guessing we're good with this. So I'm assuming there'll be a resolution next meeting, Mr. Maniscalco?
That's the game plan, is that at your next meeting, we'll have a resolution for all of you to approve this, unless there's something that's a problem for the council, but I'm not hearing or seeing anything, so.
All right, 13C is a discussion item establishing a cash rounding policy. Mr. Maniscalco?
Correct. So I think as we've all heard, the United States Treasury is no longer minting pennies. So we need to put together a policy as to how we're going to handle fees associated with pennies moving forward. So we do have a policy in your packet for all of you to look at, and our collector is here to further discuss it if you want to kind of go over the policy for all of them real quick.
This would only impact residents that pay in person with cash and don't have the pennies, or we don't have any pennies left in our reserve to use. We'll be working with finance and our computer software company to create an account and monitor how much this is costing the town. I don't foresee it being a huge issue because most residents either pay online, by mail, or by check. But we do need to have a policy in place to be prepared when our reserve is exhausted.
I'm going to go, again, I should have, I'm going to go to Councilor Boboni.
Just to be proactive on that, I recently heard that it costs 12 to 13 cents to mint a nickel. Should we also be looking at what to do with nickels as well as pennies?
No, I don't believe so at this point in time. Let's just stick with the pennies for the moment.
All right, Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just curious, how much do you collect in cash annually? How many, do you have any idea of like how many people come in and actually pay in cash?
I wouldn't feel comfortable answering how much cash comes through our office just for security reasons. I can tell you the bulk of payments are through electronic methods or via check, but I'm not comfortable answering the cash amount.
Is it just, well, how about
Nope, not comfortable answering the cash amount and what's going through.
No, just like the number of people, like number of residents that actually come in and pay in cash.
It depends on the time of year. July and January, you're going to see more people paying in cash. Off cycle, you're going to see less. We will have a line item to monitor how much cash is being written off if we were to implement this policy.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I could ask Councilor Fitzgerald's question just a little bit differently. I'm assuming either you or Mr. Maniscalco, you've done some kind of an estimate of how much money we might be losing by this rounding policy. I'm guessing it's a few $100. It's not like thousands of dollars. Could we at least get that answer?
I wouldn't say that we have an estimate at this point because it does vary from year to year. But like I said, we have a mechanism in place should you approve it, and we'd be happy to report that back either on a quarterly basis or semi-annually once we have more data.
Okay. Mr. Maniscalco, I guess just from where I'm sitting, I'd feel comfortable next meeting if I'm going to vote yes, given where we're going to go down on the budget. Every dollar does matter. So if you could just real rough, plus or minus $5,000, like what are we talking about? I'm not worried about pennies, but if it's real money, I'd like to know about it before we vote.
Certainly, we'll see what we can work up for you.
Yeah, and I'll take your estimate. You know, you could real rough extrapolate. I'm just looking for something.
Sure.
All right, Councilor King.
Thank you. To that point, Mr. Mayor, to that point, I would suggest that even if we need to do it in executive session, at the end of the day, we're responsible to the taxpayers for the money we collect. So if we need to do it, I appreciate what you're saying, because obviously you don't want to get held up. But at the same time, for us to make a conscious decision, we need to know facts and figures. So if we go to executive session, we can have that discussion.
Right, but just keep in mind it is pennies we're talking about. So if somebody comes in and owes 94 cents and they only have 95 cents, you would in essence be writing off a penny.
I understand. I'm just looking for, that's kind of the answer I'm looking for, but and Attorney Corella, I'm guessing I know what you're going to say, but about the executive session, or?
No, that's correct. If you want to talk about these types of security issues in executive session, that's the place to do it. What I was going to say is that this policy, as the tax collectors has prepared it, is in line with Connecticut Department of Revenue and Department of Consumer Protection guidance. It's different, actually, than the U.S. Treasury guidance, but that's fine. I don't want to get into the weeds on it. This is fine for Connecticut right now. It may have to change down the road if there's ever any U.S. Treasury guidance, but there isn't at the moment. So you're good to go from the state of Connecticut point of view.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for both presentations. Really appreciate it. Thank you. We are up to 13D. Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Already did that.
Resolution setting a public hearing to receive citizen input on the proposed 2026-2027 Board of Education budget. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, April 6th, 2026 at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the FY 2026-2027 proposed Board of Education budget.
Second.
Mr. Second. All right. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Passes unanimously. 13E, Deputy Mayor Paterno, can you take care of that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a resolution approving a refund batch number 14 for 9 refunds totaling $26,703.51. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves 9 tax refunds, a total of said refunds being $26,703.51, as more fully described in Exhibit B.
Is there a second? All right. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. We don't have any passages of ordinance. Is there any member from the public that would like to speak to us at this time? Seeing none? Is there any communication from the council? Councilor Delnicki.
Yes, I'd just like to report that the 2026 Household Hazardous Waste Collection Schedule has come out, and everyone should have received one at their home. And the first one that is coming up for this year is March 14th, that's Saturday, at the usual location, which is at Manchester Public Works at 321 Alcott Street, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And you need to bring a driver's license, tax bill, or a car registration to prove residency. And that's all I have.
Deputy Mayor Paterno.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just 2 reminders. One is on March 12th, the Agricultural Commission and Open Space Task Force is sponsoring an open forum, Preparing for the Future of Your Farm, an informational session on farmland preservation for farmers and agricultural landowners. That's March 12th at 7 p.m. at the Friends Room in the South Windsor Public Library. And secondly, the original Mayor's Forum on Business Development, which was set for February 23rd, and we had a slight bit of snow that day. So we've moved it now to Monday, March 30th at 7 p.m. right here in Town Hall, Council Chambers, the Mayor's Forum on Business Development. Everyone's invited. Thank you.
Councilor Delnicki.
Yep, sorry, one more item. And this Saturday, March 7th, is the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Hartford. Step off, I believe, is 11 o'clock a.m., and if you want to view it, it'll be on Channel 8. And that's it.
Okay. We are up to item 17, executive session. Deputy Mayor Paterno.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we go into executive session. Item A is pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-206C, matters concerning security, strategy, or the deployment of security personnel or devices affecting public security. And as you note, there is an item B, and we're going to remove that since there is no update at this present time on pending litigation. So it's just item A for executive session.
Can I
Mr.
ask
Town
that,
Manager.
I know you're gonna do your invitations if you had invited me. I don't believe we need to invite the town attorney. We could probably let him go for the evening.
Right.
So, as long as.
Okay.
And we'd like to invite the town manager to join us.
All right. And Attorney Corella, the way that this is handled correctly? Okay, perfect. All right, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, passes unanimously. And just a reminder to the public that we will be ending the meeting from executive session. Have a great night. Thank you.